Today, I'm going to show you how to rebuild a Akron ball valve. Okay, here we have an Akron 8825. The 88 is the series, the 25 is the diameter, 2.5 inch. Okay, so getting back to our valve, typically the reason why you would want to rebuild a valve like this is typically, and some of you folks in the engine world might have seen valves leaking around this area, and sometimes you'll see it leaking to where it's on the bottom of the valve, coming out the bottom. Now this right here is not a drain plug. That's on the bottom of the valve. That's part of the bottom portion of the trunnion that the ball valve on the inside will rest on. So think of it as going through this way. This is just a bottom piece for a pivot, and I'll show you that once we take this apart. Taking this apart is actually very simple and straightforward, and you need a 19 millimeter, or otherwise I believe this would be like a 3/4, but I pre-loosened everything up so I could take it apart by hand. So let me go ahead and do this. Okay, now we've got the handle off, okay, and one of the things I want to show you before we continue is that you'll see that there is a little notch cut in here. That is where this retainer clip ring locks down. So when you apply pressure, when you put the handle back on and then you put your nut in or your bolt in and you tighten it down, this goes into that groove. So just keep that in mind, and then you take these off, set them off to the side, and then you'll have a spring retainer here which looks like this, and you can just set all of those off to the side. So down below this clip is typically where you'll find around this piece, okay, part of the trunnion, there is a groove cut for an O-ring, and I will show you that in just a minute. Okay, moving back towards the other end, the discharge end of the valve. What we are going to do is, I've removed all the bolts, and so then what you do is you pull the cap off, and on this back side it's just a flat mating surface, and then when you go back to put it together, just make sure that it's smooth. You don't want any indentations or anything sticking out, because it may not want to form a good seal. And then this here is part of the seal, and what you'll do is on this end you can sit here and take and get in there and pry these out, and they will come up, and then you'll be able to take them out, and then that's basically all it is. And then just make sure that the back side that looks like this, it's beveled, it goes towards the ball end. And then when you get the ball out, what you can do is this ball will usually slide out, and I will show you in just a second how to do that, but it should be able to rotate freely. And so a lot of times, while I've got it this way, I'll show you that a lot of times during the winter months, when people say to you know, crack open the ball valves, okay, well here's the problem. If you've got a seal here and it's got the outer flange is bolted to that, it's only partially open. But let me show you what happens. During the winter month, the water will come down and run underneath this ball. And then what happens is that it freezes. The ball is stainless steel, so nothing happens to the ball, but this being brass, it breaks this. And that's typically what happens and how we have all these problems. So now this bottom nut down here, what I was showing you, that's the portion of the trunnion. That's the bottom pivot of where that is right there, that screw. So if you were to take this out, yeah, it might drain some water out, but if you go to move this, then this ball pivots, and then the next thing you know, it doesn't want to come out on you. So now we'll take the ball out. Okay, folks, so now here's what happens. When you go to take this out, I've loosened this up. It should be about the same 19 millimeter. Here I just use a crescent wrench, and you pull this out, and then you can probably see that there's an O-ring there. So part of the field service kit should have O-rings for just the ball up here on the upper trunnion, but may not include O-rings for the lower trunnion. So they're standard. Since it's just water, you should be able to go to Napa or CarQuest or AutoZone and get some rubber O-rings, and then it goes in there, seals up, and then you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but part of the stainless steel ball valve in there. And then once this is done, what you'll do is the ball just lifts out, and it's got a cut groove. The cut groove goes towards that end, and because this end, if you can see it right there, it's rounded on the top, rounded on the bottom, and then flat on each side, so the ball will only go in one way. And then when you drop it in, and then it will mate up just like that. Problem solved. Now the upper trunnion comes in from the bottom, so you push that out and it comes out from this inside, and then there is your seal that is going to always be probably 99% of the leaky ball valves. And if these are damaged, which they do get damaged quite frequently, it's a common occurrence, so don't freak out. It's going to leak, and any place between here and here and these seals on these valves that can leak, it is going to do it. And then what you're looking at right there is the other side of the seal, and you basically just take it apart the other way. Just loosen these up. There's nothing under pressure here, provided that you've drained the water, so you don't have to worry about anything. So you just undo these, and then it comes out. Pull your seal out, and then when you put the new one in, you can just pop it back in once the ball is in place, and put your flange back on, bolt it up, and then when you tighten it, make sure that you tighten them catty corner. But that is basically it. And then just check all the mating surfaces. And so now putting it back together is obviously going to be the reverse, so I'm not going to do the back side. But if you do the inside, make sure that everything is nice and cleaned out. Blow it out with compressed air. So just pull it off, put another one on, put a very light coat of some oil or some grease on it, and run it back up in through the hole until it stops. Once it stops, you're good. And then try to line this up. So you want to make sure that it's not at this angle. Make sure that it's vertical. So rotate it to like that, and then drop the ball back in there. And while you're at it, one of the things that you want to do is inspect the ball. If you get some serious pitting anywhere around here, that you might want to take some emery cloth and clean up. The faces aren't necessarily a problem, but around here they can be. The reason for that is that when this makes a seal and it's going to rotate, any burrs that are on here are going to cut a groove in here, and then it's not going to seal and properly close off. The problem with that is that if this is a ball valve that is going to, like, let's say a tank to pump or a pump to tank or anything like that, or a draft line, it's going to be able to leak air. And if it's leaking air through a valve and it's not the right valve that you want, then the problem that you can have with that is that more air will come through this than through the draft tube, and then you'll never be able to successfully pull a draft. So again, with this, pop the ball valve back in, and then you take your trunnion bit, the lower one, put it in there, and then this piece kind of goes in here. You can tap it down with hand, and then sometimes if you need to, you can take a rubber mallet and just lightly tap. Once you've got that part done, then your flange can come back on. It is super simple stupid. You'll spend more time trying to take everything apart to get to the valve than the actual valve itself. But again, the backside, and the reason for that is that this would normally be connected to the valve manifold, so it could be a problem. Right here. So let's say that we have this ball valve, which I replaced the seals in last year. You can, even though that this is all bolted into place, take these out on each side and then disconnect your valve handle here, and then move that out of the way, and then you should be able to slide the valve out and then replace your seals like I showed you, and then put it back in and then bolt it back up. Now, there are obviously mating gaskets in some of these, but for the most part on the Akron, all you have is the rubberized seat that I showed you on these, and that's about it. So with regard to that, then the only thing that you do is you start to replace the components that you took out. And so remember, just like that, the spring, okay, goes down there first, and remember this notch. So this has to fit over that, and then what you want to do is have that piece, and then your handle, make sure that you get that good and lined up, and then tap that with your mallet, and then put your bolt in there. And then as you start to tighten that down, it will pull this down. Stand by. Okay, and so now you can see that I've tightened it down. It's in the slot. The stop locks are now in position to where they need to be, and that would have been a successfully rebuilt valve.